Party people, how you feeling?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 33 of the PapaJugg Podcast. Hope you've had a good week. Or if you're, of course, listening to the audio on Monday, I hope you're about to start a good week. This is episode 33, and for those of you watching video, you do see that the episode 33 is in very spooky type font. The reason for that is because it is episode 33. The number 33 has interesting connotations to people, and we're going to be talking about those in the I Had a Thought About That segment of tonight, all the way at the end of the show. We're going to be talking about conspiracy theories. What are they? Why do people have them? Why do people buy into them? And why are they dangerous? They really, really are. So we're going to be talking about all of that. Up first in the show, we're going to be doing our fast facts. We've got some science segment for you. We've got another say what segment for you because somebody said something that just seemed so underwhelming when he said it, and I was genuinely surprised. So we've got a bunch of stuff to cover tonight. And again, I do thank you for being here. This is episode 33. So we're going to jump right into it with some fast facts. Wait, there we go. Okay. Whew. Okay. Up first, I don't know if anybody noticed, but the United States government has sued Apple. They are accusing the Apple Corporation of being a monopoly. Good times. It turns out green bubbles and blue bubbles really do make a difference when it comes to how businesses are regulated, because that is part of the complaint against Apple. Found a great summary in Time Magazine. The complaint, which was filed with 16 state and district attorneys general, argues that Apple engages in anti-competitive behavior by restricting how third-party products can interact with its third-party products interact with its product, including apps, non-Apple smartwatches, and more. Quote, "For years, Apple responded to competitive threats by imposing a series of whack-a-mole contractual rules and restrictions that have allowed Apple to extract higher prices from consumers, impose higher fees on developers and creators, and to throttle competitive alternatives from rival technologies." Yes, all of that is true. Apple does all of that. The joke is real. Everybody for years has talked about being in Apple jail, right? Like, once you're in, you can't get out. It's hard to get in because you got to get only Apple things and blah, blah, blah. The joke is real, and the federal government, along with 16 different United States, have all come together and said, yeah, we're going to sue you for it. And part of it actually is the blue and green bubble thing with iMessage. Sorry, I suddenly blanked on what that thing was called. It's true. They're tired of having to deal with all of the crap. Apple is going to have to answer for it. I think they're a monopoly? Yeah. I think they are. I think they engage in anti-competitive practices. I think they do everything possible to not have a fair business environment. They will win at all costs. Apple does make some good products. I'm not criticizing the products. I'm criticizing the business practices. Now, the other thing is whether or not this plays out as the governments want it to. So in other words, they might get partial victories and be like, yeah, that was, that's anti-competitive, that's anti-competitive, that's anti-competitive, that's anti-competitive. Those things may be anti-competitive, but they may not win the entire case. Their entire claim may not happen. So we're going to have to watch that and see what happens. Up next, let's talk about Stardew Valley 1.6. For those of you who play Stardew Valley, it is a little bit of a popular game. People have heard about it. Last week, 1.6 dropped. It was a huge patch, lots of new things coming about, and it has been updated since. So the fixes, because when Stardew Valley 1.6 dropped, it was great, very well received. The audience liked it, but players were noticing that there were some problems with it that somehow made it all the way through QA. So there's that. The developers kept going. What's his name? Barone. Is it Eric Barone? I always forget the guy's first name. Eric Barone. No, I was right. Eric Barone, they kept going. He dropped a new patch, and I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it was, dropped 1.6.3 because the patches have kept coming to fix the small, kind of there, but, small things in 1.6. So if you enjoy Stardew Valley, hopefully you're enjoying 1.6, but that did drop, and that was a long-awaited new set of content for that particular game. Up next, the 2024 solar eclipse. This is going to be a very, very cool one. It happens on April 8th, I believe. Where did my date go? No. Where did it go? I think it's April 8th. Why am I suddenly second guessing April 8th? I'm almost positive it's April 8th. Whatever. Let's go with April 8th. It is basically going to traverse kind of Midwest to East Coast along the United States. If you want to see the total eclipse, it is going to be a total solar eclipse if you live in a certain band of the United States. And obviously, I say obviously, but it's not actually fair. It kind of goes from East Texas into Maine and then out to the Atlantic. It follows that band all the way across if you want to see the total eclipse. So for folks like myself on the West Coast of the United States, we're not going to see much. Like, we'll see it, but not much. And the interesting thing about this one, first of all, it's going to be the last total solar eclipse visible in the United States until 2045. So you've got 21 years to wait before the next total eclipse is visible in the United States. That being said, the other interesting thing about this is that the total eclipse is going to be accompanied at basically the zenith of the 11-year solar cycle. So our sun has sort of an 11 to 12-year cycle where it gets really strong and then really weak and then really strong and then really, you see activity picking up inside and on the surface of the sun. This eclipse is going to coincide basically with the zenith of the peaks of, or the peaks of the high activity points, which means not only is there going to be a total solar eclipse, but around the same time, within days, weeks, months, whatever, there is going to be a lot of solar flares. So we not only could be getting more visible activity, but we could be getting more, well, we know we will be getting more electromagnetic activity. Have fun with your cell phone signals, those Apple products that are getting sued. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting. But like I said, this is the last total eclipse. Oh yeah, April 8th. I was right. The last total eclipse that will be visible in the United States until 2045. So make sure you see whatever you can. Go out and check it out. And again, basically, if you're in Mexico, you're certainly going to see it if you're in northern Mexico. But going from Texas out to Maine, and then kind of skips almost all of Canada, and is not going to be visible unless you're in like Newfoundland or something. So, up next, Star Citizen 1.0. I talked about this on stream. I dedicated probably half a stream to this on Twitch. If you don't follow me on Twitch, do me a favor, head over to twitch.tv/PapaJuggernaut, drop a follow. I would really appreciate that, especially if you watch, because I am on the path to partner, much like I am here on YouTube. Star Citizen 1.0 is it's getting teased by the developers. Okay. The chairman of the board, the CEO of the company, Chris Roberts, is talking about Star Citizen 1.0, which would be what they consider the feature and content complete status of the MMO version of Squadron 42. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Squadron 42 was the original project. Squadron 42 was the original Kickstarter idea that was like, yeah, Chris Roberts wants to make another game. And then the MMO was part of it later added, blah, 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 whatever. And so everybody's been playing Star Citizen, and Squadron 42 is now feature complete. Squadron 42 is the single player. Star Citizen is the multiplayer. And it's been, we're looking at basically 12 years in development right now, 11-ish. They're now talking about 1.0 being on the horizon. What they don't really say is that the horizon is really far away. It is years away, but they are planning it, and they now have moved somebody, a guy named Rich Tyrer. He's been moved up to senior game director. He is now leading both the MMO, Star Citizen, and he's leading the single player, Squadron 42. But they are talking about now planning for 1.0 Star Citizen eventually releasing to the public. I applaud them for that. I think I just wish they were more honest about how long it's going to take to get there. That's what I think is where they're failing. I think that they are giving people more sort of that hopium stuff, just, feeding the addiction. Are they planning it? Yes. Do they need to dedicate time and resources to get there right now? No. The game is in a barely playable alpha state. It's fun. It's still my funnest game. I love Star Citizen. It's a blast, but it is not even close to moving out of an alpha phase. So whatever. That's just me. Up next, Reddit has gone public. For those who missed it, I believe it was March 19th was the exact date. Reddit went public to the world. It went public at approximately $34, $38, and immediately shot up. It went to almost $60 first day, and it has kind of hovered around $50 ever since. Not a ton of shift. There's a little bit of shift. The math is a little funky. The value that it currently has is mostly supported by their revenue numbers, mostly supported by their books, but not entirely. I think there's a little bit of hype in there. It's okay. But Reddit did go public. It is now a publicly traded company. It is, as of today's closing, which is Friday, March 29th, it is sitting at $49.32. That was a 15% drop today. So maybe it is coming back to reality. Who knows? It opened of the day at 57.70. Sorry, it opened at 54.52. So whatever. Reddit is public. If you missed out on the investment opportunities, that means you're not rich enough to participate. And sad for all of us. A lot of institutional investors picked up on this because they're really excited about what Reddit can do, even though it's got some big, kind of headwinds that it's got to deal with. So we'll see where that leads. Up next, unfortunately, we have the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland. That is a major course of traffic for East Coast shipping. The port has been closed. The bridge is still down. They are finally moving into I hate to say it, but it's a recovery phase for bodies. They've already recovered some bodies that were found on the river. Strange thing was, there was an article that came out yesterday, I believe on Thursday. There was an article that said all the victims on the bridge, because apparently the ship did declare a mayday. It said it was out of control and it was going to hit the bridge. Local authorities were able to close the bridge, but there were cars on it still. So I guess it was quick reaction to, I don't know, whatever was going on. I saw an interesting headline that said all of the victims that were on the bridge were all Central American immigrants. I was really curious about that. I thought that was a strange coincidence. I guess they were all, asylum seekers or whatever it was, but somehow those were the only vehicles left on the bridge. The last count that I saw was that there were 6 vehicles still on the bridge at the time of the collision. As of the last count that I saw, they've recovered 4 bodies, I believe, so far. I know 2 guys were found in a truck. And it was found 25 feet from where the bridge collapsed. So obviously there's a river. So it was moving things. But yeah, very, very tough. The ship, interestingly enough, is a Singaporean registered ship. It's called the Dali, D-A-L-I. It's had a crash before. That was interesting. It was involved in a minor incident in Belgium's port of Antwerp. Antwerp is a huge shipping port in Europe. But same ship also had an incident, which, look, boats have incidents. I mean, they're giant 1,000-ton vessel, thousands and thousands of tons moving in very tiny spaces. I get that, but thought it was interesting. It is a 1,000-foot-long vessel. It was heading out of Baltimore Harbor and bound for Sri Lanka when it hit a support pylon of the bridge around 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So, unfortunately, the 1.6-mile structure has crumpled into the icy water almost immediately after it was struck, and now, unfortunately, they have moved from search and rescue over to recovery. They do not believe any living victims would still be found, and if so, they almost certainly made it to shore at this point, but whatever. All right, so let's move on. We're going to go to a science. In tonight's science segment, I wanted to share with you something that is very evolutionarily interesting, and that is something that scientists have been mildly aware of. It's been a theory for a few years, but it's something that is it's kind of hard because of the timeline to wrap your head around it. What we're talking about tonight in the science segment is the disappearance of the Y chromosome in humanity. It's an odd scientific genetic concept. So what's happening is, over hundreds of millions of years, we have evidence to suggest that in not just Homo sapiens, but our distant relatives as well, the Y chromosome has been shrinking. In some cases, it is losing the ability or doesn't have the ability to create gene copies of, basically protecting itself. So for those of you who are not very familiar with genetics, the female of the species has one chromosome in two pairs. It's got two X chromosomes. The male of the species has an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. It could be said that the Y chromosome is what makes you male. What's interesting about that is that all babies, all fetuses before they're babies, all fetuses have a Y chromosome. It is the Y chromosome that chooses the gender of the eventual baby. And the Y chromosome is shrinking. It's actually losing genetic data every single year. Little bit, little tiny bits, little tiny fractions, little things. But the Y chromosome is getting smaller. So eventually, in, I think it was something like 160 million years, where did it go? There was a number here. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is interesting. I want to say it was 100. They estimate somewhere in 100. There it is, 142 million years-ish, give or take a few millennia. The chromosome is eventually going to disappear or become basically vestigial, sort of like, a human tailbone. Like, we don't really need it. It was a remnant of another time. And we won't have one. Now, what they don't know, there are theories, but what they don't know is what's going to happen to the role of the Y chromosome. Will it be absorbed by the X chromosome and there will now be X chromosome, or a version of, like an X1 or an X2, something like that? Will there be a version that determines gender for a baby in a womb? Will there be an X chromosome that helps identify or separate male from female? Will it create more of a homogeneous gender 140 million years from now? There's theories about what this would mean and how humanity will evolve to continue procreating similar to what we do now. But it's all theory. We don't have a lot of evidence for what happens when a species of our level of complication has a genetic shift like this. Now, thankfully, we have 140 some odd million years to get over this. The species will be fine. Like, it's not like we're going to go extinct. And in fact, all the research that I've done over the last 3 weeks on this, all the research, I never found anybody who said it would mean the end of humanity. As we have done for the last 160 million years of our evolution, or whatever, however far back you'd like to go in terms of finding common ancestors. The interesting thing is that the XY chromosomes weren't the same then as they are now, and they're not going to be the same 140 million from now as they are now. Or 140 from now. Yeah, that. So we'll be fine, but we won't be as we currently are, just like we are not now as we were then. There will be changes. There was a study I want to read from. There was a 20. Yeah. For example, a recent Danish study published in the PLOS Genetics magazine sequenced portions of the Y chromosome from 62 different men and found that it is prone to large-scale structural rearrangements, allowing for gene amplification, which does allow for genes to be copied. So that could be a way that the Y chromosome is now evolving or changing to compensate for its smaller size. It's giving itself new abilities and saying, okay, we have to protect a role, if not a shape. So what shall we do? So this is how it's going to slow itself and kind of get over the eventual problems. The Y chromosome hasn't always been like this. I'm reading this from, who the hell wrote this? Where's the author? Sorry, there's an author on here. I should give due credit. There it is, Fritz Holznagel. Fritz wrote an interesting article. Let's see. So, the Y chromosome hasn't always been. If we rewind the clock to 166 million years ago, to the very first mammals, the story was completely different. The early proto-Y chromosome was originally the same size as the X chromosome, and right now it's not. Right now, like I was talking about, over 160 million years, things have changed. The Y chromosome is like half the size of the X chromosome now. Used to be 166 million years ago. The proto-Y chromosome was originally the same size as the X, and it contained all the same genes. However, Y chromosomes have a fundamental flaw. Unlike all other chromosomes, which have 2 copies of each in our cells, Y chromosomes are only ever present as a single copy passed from father to son. There are no genetically identifiable females with a Y chromosome. Doesn't happen. Interesting. That means the genes on the Y chromosome cannot undergo genetic recombination, which is the shuffling of genes that occurs in each generation, which helps eliminate damaging gene mutations. So I think genetically speaking, that means men are broken. I think that it's a very polite way of saying that. We don't filter out the same genetic mutations as women do, or we do it worse. I think that would be fair. We do it worse than women. We have a way to do it, but it's not as strong as in women because women have 2 X chromosomes. Deprived of the benefits of recombination, Y chromosomal genes degenerate over time and are eventually lost from the genome. How weird is that? I want you to imagine, kind of like think Star Trek-ish. Star Trek land, think far, far in the future, 140 million years in the future, but could we have a semi-single gender species? What would recreation look like? What would courting look like? What would mating look like? I mean, do we become frogs? There are many species on the planet Earth already that can reproduce asexually. They can switch genders. Happens all the time. This is one of my favorite things about the people who love to talk about there's only 2 genders. No, there's not. In fact, there's many, many animals, which we are. Newsflash, humans are animals. There are many animals on Earth that can change their gender at will. Not as the result of an environmental factor, at will. Like, I'm going to be a girl today. Bing! And they're done. Like, it just happens. So I think this whole thing is really interesting. I think we've got obviously the timeline is very long, but I think the level of research that goes into this is going to be interesting because we may be seeing effects of it now. Are we losing critical things generation after generation after generation? Are we losing things that separate or identify male to female? I'm sorry, male or female. Maybe not to female, but male or female. We may be experiencing that. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting thing. Where there was another... as we argue in a chapter in a new ebook, even if the Y chromosomes in humans does disappear, it does not necessarily mean that males themselves are on their way out. Even in the species that have actually lost their Y chromosomes completely, males and females are both still necessary for reproduction. In these cases, the SRY gene, it's like a master gene. It is a master switch gene. It determines genetic maleness. It just moves to another chromosome. Evolutionarily, it said, all right, we're losing Y, so let's move this master switch. Let's move this thing that identifies male or female, move it elsewhere. Just this thing, we know it's dying. We know the Y chromosome is going to go away. Take this really important feature and put it on another chromosome. Ta-da! All done. It's great. So that's the magic of evolution. It's really cool. So although this is an interesting and hotly debated area of genetic research, there is little need to worry. We don't even know whether the Y chromosome will disappear at all. And as we've shown, even if it does, we will most likely continue to need men so that normal reproduction can continue. Indeed, the prospect of a farm animal type system where a few lucky males, not sure that's the word, few lucky males are selected to father the majority of our children is certainly not on the horizon. In any event, there will be far more pressing concerns over the next 4.6 million years. Also, that brings up an interesting point. Does anybody remember there was a movie, I want to say it was War Games, but it might have been Terminator. It was the number of people that they were going to put in the bunker for the end of the world so that you could repopulate the human species. It's not 50-50 male-female. It was something like, oh God, was it 9 males and 23 females or something like that? But basically, genetic research has shown that you don't need an even split. You need this number of males and this number of females as a minimum, and it's not even. And I want to say it was like 9 and 23. I don't know why, but that keeps popping into my head. We're going to say 9 and 23. Let's go with that one. So, yeah. So that was it. That was our science segment for tonight. We are losing the Y chromosome, or the Y chromosome is shrinking, perhaps to the point of just being sort of futile and useless. But what that means for our species over the next few million years, we have no idea. Let's move on to Say What? What does the fuck say? Something stupid. Well, that's a bummer. This is what was said by a guy named Graham Bensinger. If you're not familiar with him, he's been a journalist for a few years. He was on NBC Sports. He got laid off from NBC Sports, and he couldn't really get another job that he wanted to do. So he created a job, and now he goes around interviewing celebrities. He's interviewed quite a bit. Like, I'm not going to take anything away from this guy. He seems to be a professional. He seems to be respected in the industry for the most part, or maybe celebrities are just clamoring for his audience of a few million people. I don't know. Whatever it is, the guy's got a decent reputation. He landed an interview with Logan Paul. He was going to do this like docu-series on Logan Paul's life, like going back into childhood and whatever. So he does this whole thing. They were appearing on TMZ together for an interview. And I guess Logan Paul decided to use that interview to drop the bomb that he was pissed. What Bensinger had done was, I guess he had pitched this. The evidence shows he had pitched this to Logan Paul as something that was going to go on Apple Plus. It was going to go on Apple TV. Okay. And it was going to be part of this big series. Now, Graham Bensinger, for his side of the story, he has a large YouTube channel. He's got a large audience. He has a show that airs on ABC and CBS and NBC and Fox. Like the guy has a sizable media presence. Okay. But I guess this whole thing was pitched, according to the documents that we've seen, this whole thing was pitched to Logan Paul as a Apple TV, Apple Plus kind of a deal. Great. So for 5 months, he is in Logan Paul's life. He's going to events. He's getting access to childhood things. He's in his house. He's with his family for Christmas. Like the whole thing. He's embedded with the guy for 5 months. Well, it didn't end the way they thought. He screened the piece for Logan Paul. Logan said he liked it. Graham was happy with it. It gets released, but not on Apple. It got released on Graham's YouTube channel. That apparently pissed off Logan Paul, which I've said before on the show. I'm not a huge Logan Paul fan. I'm not a huge Jake Paul fan. But who cares? My liking them is irrelevant. My point is, even though I don't really associate with the guys, I see his point. It was pitched to him as being, a specific kind of project, and it was going to be launched in a specific kind of way. The last part didn't occur. And so they're sitting in this TMZ interview, and Logan drops the bomb. He's mad at Graham Bensinger for this. Graham wasn't aware that this was going to be part of the interview. It doesn't look like TMZ was either. It looks like it caught everybody but Logan by surprise. So he's holding up emails. He's like, your team said, look, Apple. Your team said this was going to be Apple, and now it's not Apple. Graham comes back. I think I can play the audio for you. No, of course I can't, because the damn thing reloaded on me again. Wait, maybe this is it? No, that's the conjoined twins. Nobody cares. So whatever. They do this whole interview thing. Can I get this audio to play? The TMZ player is broken, and I hate TMZ, guys. I really do, but they're the only ones that have this because it's their network. Oh, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Hold on. I got to get to the Logan part. Here we go. So, yeah.
I'm bummed to hear that.
I'm bummed to hear that. When you've got somebody of the size and, sadly, media power of Logan Paul, who is accusing you of fraud and deception, and I'm sorry, your response, let's back it up a little bit. Here we go.
I'm bummed to hear that.
I'm bummed to hear that. Like, that is not a prepared statement. That is somebody who was caught in the headlights and is just like, okay, we're having this conversation now. On Graham's side of the story, Graham says that he told Paul's manager like 2 months into the project, or 2 months ago, whatever it was, he told his manager, hey, the deal with Apple fell through. We're not doing this on Apple. Okay. Graham says that he texted Logan Paul personally, asked him to call him back. Logan never called back. I don't know where this goes. I really don't care where this goes. Like I said, the whole point of this segment is just catching these wonderful random quote moments. And I thought, well, I'm bummed to hear that. I thought that was a great quote, but I think this is going to be something interesting, especially for those of us who are content creators. This kind of stuff, especially at the level of Logan Paul, these kind of details get wrapped up early. These kinds of contingencies get laid out early. This is part of the negotiation process for the deal to occur. This isn't a surprise. So what I'm curious about is why, if this was all spelled out, if this was hey, guarantee this is going on to Apple or there is no deal. Clearly, I don't think that clause existed because this guy didn't do it. And Logan Paul is Logan suing him already? I don't think so. There's no claims that Logan Paul is suing him already, so that's irrelevant. Why not just settle this? Like, why not just be like, look, here's what the contract said. Here's what you did or didn't do. Next step is what? Like, why is Graham even entertaining this conversation? If this was a disagreement prior to TMZ, first of all, that's another big thing. If this was a disagreement and these two guys knew that they were disagreeing, why did one or both of them agree to a TMZ interview? You know TMZ is going to go for the drama. You know TMZ is going to not make this professional. You know that they're going to hound you about this now. If he knew that Logan Paul was upset, don't go on TMZ with the guy. They're split screen on this guy. They're side by side. Why would you agree to the interview? Something doesn't make sense about this. And I think the quote was stupid. All right. Let's move on. We're going to move on to our final segment of the night, which is always, I had a thought about that. And that is because tonight is episode 33 of the PapaJugg Podcast, which means we are going to dive into the world of conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are occasionally fun. Conspiracy theories can be creative. Conspiracy theories can be very, very, very dangerous. They can be dangerous to individuals. They can be dangerous to societies. They can be dangerous to organizations. We talked about 33. One fun conspiracy theory is that the number 33 is somehow this magic number, right? It has some special role in the universe. It's a symbol of power or whatever you want to do. It is probably most notably represented by the Illuminati, which was a real group. That's not a conspiracy theory. The Illuminati was a real organization. We know who the members were. We know when it was found. Real group. But the highest level of Masonry the Illuminati, which people then relate to later the Freemasons. The highest level of Freemasonry is level 33. That is where you are a Master Mason. That is where, according to the Masons, you receive the highest level of knowledge about the organization, their scientific study, or whatever the hell they've got. Great. But it's level 33. Right here in Southern California, the Disney theme park, Disneyland. Disneyland has an exclusive club called Club 33. Walt Disney was a Mason. 33 appears in a lot of places. Now, is it now basically a meme? Yeah, I kind of think so. I think that there is a lot of evidence to say that people are now using 33 just because powerful organizations have used it. Okay. But there's a lot, here's some of the weirdest conspiracy theories. So, of course, the very famous, the fake moon landing. The 1969 moon landing with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the third guy didn't occur. It was all filmed in a Hollywood studio somewhere or at Edwards Air Force Base here in California. There are plenty of theories about how we generated the moon landing because we couldn't actually get there. Nonsense. It makes no sense whatsoever, but who cares? 9/11 conspiracies, that it was brought down by a government plot. Conspiracy theory. Princess Diana was murdered for secret reasons. Subliminal advertising. I'm going to speak to this one. It's on the list that I've prepared, but I will speak to subliminal advertising. Subliminal advertising, the conspiracy theory claims, is that they are using secret sounds or visuals or series of different stimuli to make you think something that isn't necessarily portrayed on the screen. Listen, I've worked in marketing for over 20 years. Subliminal marketing is not a conspiracy theory. It absolutely happens. I cannot convey, probably because the number has never been accurately measured, I cannot convey how much money has gone into psychology studies for advertising. How do we change, influence, or otherwise prompt people to think certain ways? If you are going to Burger King, how do I, McDonald's, convince you to go to McDonald's? If you are thinking of buying a car from this brand, how do I change your mind to buy from that brand? Billions of dollars have been spent purely on psychological research to understand decision-making, influencing, stimulus, all of that stuff. Subliminal advertising in that context is not a conspiracy theory. It's real. Subliminal advertising where they are trying to use some sort of image magic or hidden audio tracks, that part is crap. I would have no problem calling out my own industry and be like, oh yes, happens all the time. We have secret tracks. No. We don't care that much. It doesn't work, by the way. It also doesn't work. Multiple entities have tried it. Not in the advertising world specifically I'm talking about, but in advertising, in government, in military, in charity work, music, art. So many people have tried this thing where they try to embed hidden message. It's bull. If there's a hidden message somewhere in advertising, it is right up front, or it's something you can obviously see, and it's intended to trigger something related. It's not a secret. It's not hidden. It's like, nope, that's there. It may not be the focal point, but it's there. You know, you could play this thing back and watch it 12 times. It's fine. I'll clarify that. Let's see. And then we had, this was a great one. Most of you aren't old enough to remember it. But many decades ago, there was a theory that Paul McCartney was actually dead. There was a stupid conspiracy theory that said that Paul McCartney was actually dead. And it stemmed from people would be, if you play, this Beatles song or that Beatles song backwards and you filter it, and then you look at an album cover and then you stand on your head for 3 seconds, all this dumbass stuff. But there were all these hints that Paul McCartney was actually dead and had been replaced. So stupid. Okay. Paul McCartney is very much not dead. Many conspiracy theories regarding the John F. Kennedy assassination, aliens landing at Roswell. This was a fun one. For those of you who own Ford vehicles, you may not know that the founder of Ford, Henry Ford, was actually an avowed anti-Semite and supporter of the Nazis. He propagated a ridiculous book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was a completely manufactured book about the Jewish takeover of the world. Hitler loved this thing. Hitler was a huge fan of Henry Ford too. So he was propagating this book to try to convince the world, just as Hitler had done, that the Jews were trying to take over. Problem was, none of it was true, and it was entirely fictionalized and invented. But again, huge conspiracy theory that was dangerous. And we're going to talk about that. This is great. The Satanic Panic. If you were in the Western world in the 1980s and 1990s, you were undoubtedly exposed to the ridiculous conspiracy theory led by the religious right called the Satanic Panic. It stretched, again, you could pick on Ozzy Osbourne, you could go to Marilyn Manson. It was these religious zealots who were convinced that there was a satanic influence taking over the music, art, and entertainment businesses, trying to corrupt the children. It is one of the reasons, actually, that especially in the United States, but in a lot of countries have this now, where you have age ratings on music albums. It's because of the lunatics of the Satanic Panic who thought that the devil, fictional book character, they might as well have thought that, Voldemort was trying to take over our kids. They thought that the devil was trying to use music to corrupt children and take them away. Stupid conspiracy theory. Let's keep going. What else? Chemtrails. That's a fun one. In fact, there's a short on my YouTube channel where Ren says chemtrails when he's trying to describe contrails coming off the tail of a plane in Star Citizen. He says chemtrails. I say contrails. And I told him, I said, you said chemtrails. They're coming after you. His ship crashed 3 seconds later. Conspiracy theory? Yes, it is. It's just a coincidence. Of course, Barack Obama, where was he born? That was a conspiracy theory. Fun one, recent one, everybody. Remember COVID? Yeah. Remember the crazy people that said COVID was somehow tied into the 5G cell phones and was going to put microwaves in your brain? Good God. Ooh. Yeah. So your COVID vaccine was going to give you 5G because then they could link you to the towers. Again, lunatics. Here's an interesting one. I had never in my life heard this conspiracy theory until I was researching for tonight's episode. Have you ever heard the conspiracy theory that birds aren't real? Apparently, this is a thing. I found multiple references documented to this. I'm going to read this paragraph to you. The birds aren't real conspiracy is a movement developed by Peter McIndoe, who's 23. He started spreading the idea in 2017. Until a December 2021 interview in the New York Times, he stayed in character as a true believer, insisting in every media interview he did that birds aren't real. His conspiracy theory was that birds were actually surveillance drones from the government. And he pushed this out online, and people believed him. They really did. Birds aren't real. It had a staff. It had real life protests. It bought real life billboards, and it emblazoned vans with their claim. The goal, said McIndoe, was to parody the misinformation that Gen Z finds itself stewing in. For 4 years, this dude was in character saying that birds aren't real, and people bought it. Okay? Just remember that. Of course, the classic Earth is flat. Always a fun conspiracy theory. What else? Reptilians. Of course, the reptilian government. It's not actually run by humans, but a reptile species. Yep. Health authorities are hiding natural cures. Sure. Of course, fan theories. All the ridiculous, like I said, we talked about Paul McCartney earlier. There was one, I guess I've never given a shit about Harry Styles, but there was one about Harry Styles. I guess he was like supposed to be in a relationship with Louis Tomlinson or something. I don't know. It was ridiculous. Then there was one. Oh, yes. There was another one. So Paul McCartney was dead, but also Avril Lavigne. Canadian singer Avril Lavigne is dead and has been dead since 2003. Her record company replaced her with a body double. Okay, sure. What else? Oh, yeah. We were speaking about the Illuminati earlier. If you've never heard, apparently the Denver International Airport is the new headquarters for the Illuminati because they have weird artwork. That's the theory. The weird artwork, which is weird. I've been to Denver Airport. It is unusual. It's very special artwork. You walk in and you're just kind of like, why? Why is this here? What does this have to do with air travel? We don't know. But whatever. New conspiracy theory. It's the new headquarters for the Illuminati. Some of these are obviously ridiculous, but together they're not. And that's what I want to talk about tonight is you need to protect yourself, not just from being exposed to conspiracy theories, but from falling victim to them. You certainly don't want to be the subject of one. You don't want somebody inventing some sort of terrible conspiracy about you that isn't true. And for the same reason, you don't want to participate in conspiracy theories about other people. The bigger problem, according to scientific research, is on a sociological level. If we are dealing with the acceptance of a theory without fact, without evidence, without truth, it begins or sometimes accelerates a very slippery psychological slope to believing kind of much anything. You get to a point where I believe that without evidence. Okay, what else will you believe without evidence now that you've gone down that road? And it becomes a lot easier. That's the problem, is that you've done it once. So what's wrong with doing it twice? Know what I mean? Like that's the danger, is that we now find ourselves going to a place where I don't need information. I don't need evidence. I don't need facts. I like it, so I'm going to go with it. And that's not good. That's a very, very unhealthy thing, both for you as a person, because that means you are susceptible to bullshit, but also for communities and the society at large, because the more people that do it, the worse society gets. I'm reading from an article here. This was published by the Department of Psychology at the University of Quebec at Montreal, in Montreal, Canada. Conspiracy theories are a form of narrative, storytelling, basically. Defined as a shared belief system providing an alternative ideological framework to explain a situation and offer guidance as to how to behave to regain significance, control, and affiliations. Most conspiracy theories exist for the propagation of power. It exists to separate one person from another, one group from another, one society from another, etc. Conspiracy theories almost always have a victim or an enemy, sort of an antagonist. And it's usually propagated to be, be coming from the protagonist of the story. We are the good guys. We are the heroes. We are the right ones. And they're wrong. They're bad. They're evil. I don't need to give you a ton of evidence, but even if I wanted to, I could. I could give you a ton of evidence, and that evidence is going to be really, really good. It may not be true, but it's good. And that's the problem. So, as conspiracy theories are alternative narratives to the status quo, people turn to them to compensate for their thwarted needs. Such narratives accentuate the threatening characteristics of demonized outgroups and praise the people who endorse the beliefs and behaviors put forward by the ideology. It's manipulation. And A good conspiracy theory will try to achieve manipulation at a very large scale. In the United States specifically, we are one of the biggest, most dangerous conspiracy theories that we are trying to battle right now is election denying. Elections aren't safe. Elections aren't secure. Elections aren't true. Elections are rigged. All of these things. It culminated with the 2020 election, obviously. That has now had worldwide ripples. But without any evidence, people by the millions are believing this. It's just not true. But it gives them, I'm going to read this again. They are alternative narratives to the status quo. People turn to them to compensate for their thwarted needs. You have a group of people who, for political reasons, religious reasons, just personal ideological reasons, whatever it may be, they have a narrative that they want. They have a narrative that they want to exist, to be true, to be real, but it's not. So they turn to this alternative without evidence, and they say, I like that better, so I'm going to go with that. And it's dangerous. People have been hurt over this. People have died over this. But the truth was lost. Of note, some authors have suggested that believing in conspiracy theories can be adaptive to survival. One could argue that such beliefs could be considered adaptive only when they concern real conspiracies and not unjustified conspiracy theories. The problem is the people that believe in conspiracy theories, junk without evidence, when they believe that, they don't know the difference, or they don't care about the difference between a true conspiracy and a conspiracy theory that has no basis in reality whatsoever. A true conspiracy, absolutely 100% true conspiracy, is that for many years, Adolf Hitler worked to develop the Nazi Party, blamed Jews, wrote Mein Kampf, loved the protocols of the Elders of Zion. All of that was a conspiracy. A conspiracy theory would be that Adolf Hitler did not kill himself and his wife, did not burn, did not die, and was still roaming the planet after World War II. That would be a conspiracy theory. People like that because it sounds fun and it sounds entertaining and it provides this really cool mystery. It has no basis in reality. But those two things are different. One was a conspiracy, one was a conspiracy theory. From Cambridge University Press, are conspiracy theories harmless? No. I lost all my highlights. Sorry. Here we go. People believe in conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories explain significant events and circumstances as the secret and malicious acts of powerful groups. Research on the psychology of conspiracy theories has grown significantly in the past 15 years, especially since the elections and COVID of the last 5 years, focusing predominantly on why some people are inclined toward conspiracy theories while others are not. And that's the thing. Are you or are you not? When you think that it's fun, harmless entertainment, you become susceptible to conspiracy theories. When you realize that there is a potential danger, even if something as ridiculous as the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, even when it's something is like, look, that's, it's fun. It's just good fun. All right. But if you start to believe the fun ones, it becomes easier to believe the less fun ones, the more serious ones, the more dangerous ones. So you've got to kind of monitor that for yourself and monitor that in your friends and family. If you see somebody slipping down this slippery slope of insanity, maybe have a conversation with them about why they believe it. It's usually very unproductive to sit there and say, you believe something that's stupid. It may be more helpful to have a conversation with them about the truth about it. Not like, well, I have the truth and you don't. Have conversations with them about what are they relying on to claim that it's true. Have them walk you through it. They may have a very reasonable to them reason for why they believe it. And don't dismiss that. That's not fair to them and that's not productive for you. Have a conversation about why they believe this thing, why they think this conspiracy theory is true, and why, maybe also why it's important. Hear them out. Once you hear them out, figure out, okay, how much of this can be refuted with plain facts? I was at a party about, I want to say a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I was at a party. There was a guest at the party who was a very religious person, which is fine, not a big deal, who also happened to believe that the world was flat. She genuinely, truly believed the world was flat. Human society hasn't thought the world was flat for about 3,000 years. The ancient Greeks, there's writings in ancient Greece that talk about the round world. Not the circular world, the spherical world. We've known that now, we didn't know the position of the sun and the earth. We didn't have a heliocentric model yet, but we figured out, because of, sailing was the easiest way. We figured out that the planet was round. This woman in 2022, I think it was, maybe it was it had to be 2022. She thought the world was flat. And I had conversation, and I listened to her. I said, why do you think this? Talk to me about, how did you get to this shape? Why flat? And I would bring up facts, physics, geometry, just basic things. And just be like, look, this is why the world's not flat. And every time I brought up a fact, she had one basic response, and it was, well, I don't know about that. Perfect. You're honest. We appreciate that. Thank you for telling us you don't know about that. When you learn about that, it may help you understand why your current idea doesn't make any sense. Here's why I'm going to bring this up as an example. This lady thought the world was flat. Much like drugs and alcohol, I don't care what people do to themselves. If somebody wants to drink, if somebody wants to do drugs, whatever, I could not care less. Somebody wants to have sex while asphyxiating themselves. Have a nice time. That's your life to live. This woman was a mother. She was trying to convince her teenage daughter that the world was flat. That's the danger. In a world of 2023, now 2024, it had to be 2022, whatever. In the 21st century, we are living in a world where this little girl was dealing with her mother, trying to convince her that a concept that hasn't existed for millennia was still true. She has to deal with that. And for, I think all of us, we all remember, it's hard to contradict parents. Especially parents as crazy as this lady. How do you tell your mother, who is 3 times your age, how do you tell your mother that you know more about the world than she does? It's not an easy thing. But clearly this daughter did. This daughter was like, my mom's nuts. Her husband didn't buy into her crap either. He thought she was lunatic as well. But there she was, sitting in this living room at a party, telling me the world was flat. That's the danger. She's trying to change other people's minds about the craziness, saying that it's true, saying that it's normal. It's not. Here we go. While there is a growing consensus, this is from the same article at Cambridge. While there is growing consensus among researchers regarding the psychological underpinnings of conspiracy beliefs, the consequences of conspiracy theories are less well understood. Some theorists argue that there may be positive outcomes. Specifically, conspiracy theories may provide a sense of community for people with marginal views. Typically, not going to say everything, typically marginal views are marginal because they have less basis in fact. The reason they're marginal is because either they're new and they have yet to be developed, or they're old and they're getting pushed out to the margins. That's typical. They may open up opportunities for political debate and increase accountability. They may encourage greater transparency and inspire people to mobilize towards collective goals with the intention to bring about social change. Some scholars view conspiracy theories as a result of people's attempts to understand social and political reality. Therefore, they're an important ingredient of democratic discourse. No, they're not important because they're not real. There's a difference between a conspiracy theory and a hypothetical. Like you could play, you could get into this world of philosophy where you play in the realm of hypothetical to try to explore an idea. But that's different from a conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory says reality isn't real and I know the truth. That's not productive. That's stupid. So far, the positive outcomes of conspiracy theories seem to be heavily outweighed by the negative psychological and social consequences, which have been studied more comprehensively in psychology and other social sciences. You gotta be careful of this stuff. Yeah, there's an entire section in this paper dedicated to prejudice, discrimination, and intergroup relations. Don't let yourself or the people that you know about and care about fall victim to a conspiracy theory. If you know somebody that is spouting crazy ideas that have no basis in fact, if it's safe for you to do so, help address it. Certainly don't encourage it. It's not going to help anything. It's not like, well, I'll just let them go. It's like, no. This could be a danger to them. It could be a danger to other people. If it's safe for you to do so, try to address it. And I mean safe in two ways. One, if they do have a true like mental health issue, you don't want to put yourself in harm's way. Secondly, if you have the emotional ability, the mental ability to address it with them, handle it. If you don't, basically don't break yourself to try to heal them. Don't inflict that upon yourself. But if you can have a healthy conversation with somebody, have that. I would encourage it. So that is where I'm going to leave the world of conspiracy theories. Tonight is episode 33. I thank you for tuning in. And stay safe out there. And while you do that, go have yourself a good morning, a good day, a good night, whatever it is for you. And I will see you tomorrow on Twitch, live at Anzia Racing, because it is the championship series of the Open GP and Pro GP classes of Crux Cup 2954. You get to listen to me and Henkin SC do live commentary of the races, and we're going to have a hell of a good time. So I'll see you then.